What made you check your father's trunk? The key turned easier than I expected. For someone who'd spent 16 years hiding secrets, Dad was surprisingly careless about locking his basement door. I shouldn't have been there. I knew that. But when someone abandons you at 12, disappears for over a decade, then suddenly calls wanting to rebuild our relationship right after getting diagnosed with kidney failure, you tend to develop trust issues. Especially when you find out you're a perfect match for donation. Just need someone to check on the house while I'm at my dialysis appointments, he'd said 3 days ago, pressing the spare key into my palm with hands that shook slightly. 3 times a week, for hours each. Would mean the world to me, Sarah. The house at 847 Maple Street looked exactly like a home I dreamed he'd moved to when I was younger, 2-story colonial, manicured lawn, the kind of place that screamed stable family man. Nothing like the cramped apartment Mom and I had shared after he left, surviving on her waitressing tips and the child support payments that came sporadically at best. I'd already done my obligatory walkthrough upstairs. Mail sorted, plants watered, thermostat adjusted. Normal house-sitting duties for a father I barely knew anymore. But something felt off. The family photos were sparse and recent. No pictures of me or Mom anywhere, which stung but didn't surprise me. What did surprise me was the photo on his nightstand, Dad with his arm around a brunette woman and 2 kids who looked maybe 8 and 10 years old. That's when I noticed the basement door. The wooden steps creaked under my feet as I descended into the musty darkness. I found the light switch and blinked as fluorescent bulbs flickered to life, revealing a finished basement with a couch, TV, and exercise equipment. Normal suburban dad stuff. But in the far corner, partially hidden behind a stack of Christmas decorations, sat an old steamer trunk. My hands were trembling as I lifted the heavy lid. Inside, manila folders were organized with the kind of meticulous care that made my stomach drop. The tab on the first folder read Thompson Family, Household Expenses. Thompson. Not Coleman, which was our last name. I opened it and immediately felt like I might throw up. Electric bills for 847 Maple Street dating back 15 years. Mortgage statements. Grocery receipts. Birthday party expenses for Emma's 7th birthday and Michael's soccer banquet. Credit card statements showing charges at toy stores, clothing outlets, family restaurants. Thousands upon thousands of dollars, meticulously documented and organized by year. The kicker was the income statements. Dad worked as a senior project manager at Harrison Construction, pulling in $89,000 a year according to his most recent tax return. I knew this because it was paperclipped to a letter from Mom's attorney requesting increased child support payments, a letter dated just 2 months ago. In the margin, someone had written in Dad's handwriting, "Tell them business is slow. Offer $200 per month max." $200. For a man making nearly 6 figures. I sank onto the basement floor, folders scattered around me like evidence at a crime scene. Which, I was beginning to realize, is exactly what this was. The brunette woman in the photo upstairs wasn't his girlfriend. She was his wife. Those kids weren't some new family he'd started after abandoning us. They were the family he'd chosen instead of us. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad, running late at dialysis. Won't be home until 8 p.m. Thanks again for watching the house, sweetheart. Sweetheart. The word made my skin crawl now. I had 4 more hours to dig through his lies, and I was going to use every minute. The second folder was labeled Legal, Divorce Proceedings. My hands shook as I opened it, expecting to find paperwork from when he left Mom. Instead, I found something that made my blood turn to ice water. Divorce papers between Robert Coleman and Patricia Coleman, dated March 15, 2007. The day he supposedly left to find himself and figure things out. But according to these documents, he'd filed for divorce citing irreconcilable differences and requesting joint custody of me. Mom had never mentioned custody hearings. She told me Dad didn't want the responsibility, that he'd signed away his parental rights without a fight. But here was a court order granting him supervised visitation every other weekend, plus 2 weeks in the summer. Dated April 3, 2007. And attached to it, a letter from Mom's attorney stating that she would be relocating to her sister's house in Portland, Oregon, and that Dad could pursue his visitation rights through the Oregon court system if he chose to do so. We'd never moved to Portland. We'd stayed in the same cramped apartment on 5th Street for 3 more years until Mom saved enough to get us into a better place across town. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Mom's number. She answered on the second ring. Sarah? Is everything okay? You sound upset. Mom, I need you to tell me the truth about something. When Dad left, did he try to get visitation rights? The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Why are you asking me this now? Just answer me. Please. Another pause. Yes. He fought for joint custody. The court granted him supervised visits, but I told him if he wanted to see you, he'd have to take me to court again because we were moving to Oregon. I figured he wouldn't bother. But we didn't move to Oregon. No. We didn't. Your Aunt Lisa said there wasn't room for both of us long term, and I couldn't afford the move anyway. So we stayed. And you never told him? Sarah, your father had already put us through hell with lawyers and court dates. He missed half his supervised visits anyway, always claiming work emergencies. I thought if he really wanted to find us, he would have tried harder. I hung up without saying goodbye and stared at the folder in my lap. There were bank statements showing regular payments to something called Hartwell Investigations starting in May 2007. $500 a month for 6 months, then nothing. He'd hired a private investigator to find us. And according to a report dated October 12, 2007, the investigator had found our address, Mom's work schedule, and my school enrollment at Jefferson Middle School. Dad had known exactly where we were the entire time. The final document in the folder was a handwritten note on yellow legal paper. Patricia has made her choice. She doesn't want me in Sarah's life. Maybe it's better this way. Emma and Michael need their father more. Emma and Michael. His other children. The ones he'd chosen to raise while letting me believe he'd abandoned me because I wasn't worth fighting for. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures of everything. The third folder made my hands shake so violently I almost dropped it. The tab read Sarah, College Fund. Inside were bank statements for an education savings account opened in my name when I was born. My social security number was right there at the top, along with automatic monthly deposits of $300 that had continued like clockwork until December 2008, a full year after he'd supposedly given up looking for us. The final balance before closure was $47,839. I stared at the number until my vision blurred. $47,000. Money that could have paid for my community college classes, the ones I'd worked 2 jobs to afford while living at home. Money that could have prevented Mom from taking out a second mortgage she was still drowning in. Money that was legally mine, sitting in an account I'd never known existed. The closure paperwork showed the funds had been transferred to another education account, this one for Emma Thompson, born February 14, 2001. Dad's other daughter, who would have been 7 when she inherited my college fund. Son of a bitch, I whispered, photographing every page. My phone rang. Dad's contact photo, the awkward selfie we'd taken at coffee 3 weeks ago when he first reached out, filled the screen. I let it go to voicemail, then immediately played the message. Hey sweetheart, just wanted to check in. The dialysis is going longer than expected, so I probably won't be home until closer to 9. Hope you're not too bored at the house. Love you. Love you. 2 words he'd never said during my childhood, now tossed around casually as he manipulated me into potentially giving him a kidney. I grabbed the 4th folder, medical, kidney disease. The diagnosis was real, chronic kidney disease, stage 4, progressing rapidly. But what caught my attention was a letter from his nephrologist dated 6 months ago, explaining that his condition was likely caused by years of untreated diabetes and high blood pressure. Preventable complications that wouldn't have progressed this far with proper medical care. Attached was his insurance information. Premium coverage through Harrison Construction, the kind of plan that would have covered regular checkups and early intervention. He'd had the resources to prevent this medical crisis, but according to the appointment records, he'd skipped routine physicals for over 5 years. There was a family medical history form where he'd listed me as a potential living donor, along with Emma and Michael Thompson. But Emma was only 17 and Michael was 15, too young to donate. I wasn't just a backup plan, I was his only viable option from his biological children. The cruelest document was a printout of an email to the transplant coordinator. My eldest daughter Sarah has agreed to be tested for compatibility. We've recently reconnected after some family difficulties, and she's eager to help. She's 28, healthy, no medical conditions that would prevent donation. Eager to help. As if I'd volunteered instead of being emotionally manipulated by a man who'd let me believe I was unwanted for 16 years. I heard a car door slam outside and froze. Through the small basement window, I could see headlights in the driveway. It was only 7:20, he wasn't supposed to be home for another 40 minutes. Footsteps crossed the porch, followed by the jingle of keys and the front door opening. Sarah? You here? Dad's voice called from upstairs. I frantically started shoving documents back into folders, my heart hammering against my ribs. I'd taken photos of maybe half the evidence, and there were still 3 more folders I hadn't touched. Sarah? His footsteps moved through the kitchen, heading toward the basement door. I shoved the last folder into the trunk and eased the lid closed as quietly as possible, then grabbed a random box of Christmas decorations to make it look like I'd been organizing. The basement door opened just as I stood up, dusty and hopefully innocent looking. There you are, Dad said, starting down the steps. What are you doing down here? Just trying to help organize things, I said, gesturing to the Christmas box in my hands with what I hoped looked like casual helpfulness. I noticed some of the decorations had fallen behind this old trunk, so I thought I'd tidy up a bit. Dad's eyes flickered to the trunk, then back to my face. For a terrifying moment, I wondered if he could tell I'd been through his secrets. But then his expression softened into what I was beginning to recognize as his manipulation mask, the concerned, grateful father routine. You didn't have to do that, sweetheart. I know it's dusty down here. He moved closer, and I caught a whiff of the antiseptic smell that clung to him after dialysis. They finished early today. My numbers were actually better than expected. That's great news, I managed, though the words felt like glass in my throat. Better numbers meant his kidneys were functioning slightly better than last week. It didn't change the fact that he'd need a transplant within the year, but it might buy him time to manipulate me further. Dr. Martinez wants to schedule your final compatibility tests next week, he continued, helping me carry the Christmas boxes to a more organized stack. I know it's a lot to ask, but having you in my life again, it feels like a miracle, Sarah. Like maybe I'm getting a second chance to do things right. A second chance. The irony was suffocating. He'd had a second chance every single day for 16 years, and he'd chosen to spend it playing house with the Thompson family instead. Dad, can I ask you something? The question slipped out before I could stop myself. Of course. Anything. When you left, did you ever think about trying to see me? I mean, after the divorce was final? His face went through a series of micro-expressions, surprise, guilt, calculation. I watched him mentally construct his answer, and it made my skin crawl. Every day, he said finally. But your mother made it clear that she didn't want me around. She said you were better off without me, that seeing me would just confuse you and make things harder. I thought maybe she was right. Maybe the kindest thing I could do was stay away and let you build a stable life. The lie came so smoothly, so convincingly, that if I hadn't just read the private investigator's report and the custody documents, I might have believed him. Might have felt sorry for him, even. That must have been hard, I said carefully. Starting over completely. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. He sat down heavily on the basement couch, suddenly looking every one of his 53 years. There were times I almost drove by your school just to see how you were doing. But I was afraid I'd make things worse. Did you ever remarry? The question hung in the air like smoke. I watched his face carefully, looking for tells. His left eye twitched slightly, the same nervous tick I'd inherited from him. No, he said. I dated here and there, but nothing serious. I guess I never got over losing you and your mother. Another lie, delivered with perfect sincerity. The man was a sociopath. My phone buzzed with a text message, and I glanced down automatically. It was from an unknown number. Hi, Sarah. This is Emma Thompson. I got your number from Dad's phone. He's told us so much about you. I can't wait to meet my big sister. Maybe we can get coffee this weekend? The world tilted sideways. I stared at the message, reading it 3 times before the words fully registered. Emma. His other daughter. The 17-year-old who'd inherited my college fund was texting me like we were going to be best friends. Dad must have seen my expression change because he leaned forward with concern. Everything okay? I turned my phone face down against my leg, mind racing. Yeah, just work stuff. But Emma's message had clarified something crucial. He wasn't just lying to me about his secret family. He was lying to them about me. How long before both families collided in the most devastating way possible? Dad told us so much about you. Can't wait to meet my big sister. The words burned into my retinas as I stared at Emma's text. She had no idea that her loving father had stolen my college fund to pay for her childhood. That every soccer cleat, every birthday party, every family vacation had been funded with money that should have kept Mom and me from eating ramen for dinner 4 nights a week. I should probably head home, I said, slipping my phone into my pocket. Early day tomorrow. Of course, sweetheart. Thank you again for watching the house. Dad walked me upstairs, his hand briefly touching my shoulder in what I supposed was meant to be a paternal gesture. It took everything I had not to recoil. Same time Thursday? Actually, about that. I paused at the front door, an idea forming. I was thinking I could come by a little earlier on Thursday. Maybe around noon? I could tidy up some more, maybe start organizing other areas if you'd like. His face lit up with what appeared to be genuine gratitude. That would be wonderful. I'll make sure to leave some lunch money on the counter for you. Lunch money. Like I was still 12 years old and he was actually a father who cared about whether I ate. The drive home took 43 minutes, and I spent every one of them planning my next move. By the time I pulled into my apartment complex, I'd made 3 decisions. I was going back Thursday to photograph the remaining folders, I was going to find out everything I could about the Thompson family, and I was going to respond to Emma's text. My fingers hovered over my phone keyboard for a full 10 minutes before I typed back, Hi Emma. I'd love to meet you too. Coffee sounds great. How about Saturday at 2 p.m.? There's a Starbucks on Grant Street near downtown. Her response came within seconds, perfect. Dad says you're thinking about donating a kidney to him. That's so amazing of you. He's been really scared about the whole thing, but having you back in his life has made him so happy. See you Saturday. 2 hearts. I stared at the heart emoji until my vision blurred. This kid genuinely loved him. In her world, Robert Thompson was probably an amazing father who coached her soccer team and helped with homework and remembered every important moment of her life. Because he'd been present for hers. I pulled up Facebook and searched Emma Thompson Seattle. Her profile popped up immediately, privacy settings apparently weren't a priority for teenagers. The photos told the story I'd already guessed, family vacations to Disneyland, graduation ceremonies, birthday parties in the backyard of 847 Maple Street. Dad in every photo, smiling and engaged, arm around Emma or ruffling Michael's hair. The father I dreamed he might become someday had been real this entire time. Just not for me. Emma's About section listed her school as Roosevelt High School and mentioned she was planning to study pre-med at University of Washington in the fall. UW tuition was $12,000 a year for in-state students. My stolen college fund would cover her first 4 years with money left over. Michael's profile was harder to find, but Emma had tagged him in enough photos that I eventually located it. 15 years old, varsity baseball, honor roll student. His bio mentioned wanting to study engineering. Another expensive degree, probably funded by money that should have been supporting Mom and me all these years. I screenshotted everything, building a digital case file that was growing more damning by the hour. Then I called Mom. Sarah? It's almost 11 o'clock, honey. Is everything? Mom, I need to know about the child support payments. All of it. How much was Dad supposed to pay? How much did we actually receive? And do you have records? Another long pause. Why are you asking these questions? Did something happen with your father? Just please answer me. The court ordered him to pay $800 a month, she said quietly. We received maybe half of that, and never consistently. Some months nothing at all. I kept all the records because my attorney said I might need them someday, but after a few years, it seemed pointless to keep fighting. $800 a month. Nearly $10,000 a year. Over 16 years, that was $128,000 in missing support payments, not counting interest and penalties. Mom, we need to talk tomorrow. In person. And bring those records. The next morning, I sat across from Mom at her kitchen table, surrounded by manila envelopes and manila folders that looked disturbingly similar to the ones I'd found in Dad's trunk. The difference was that hers were thin, containing mostly court documents and sporadic payment records. His had been thick with evidence of a life fully funded. I kept everything, Mom said, sliding a folder across to me. Every missed payment, every excuse from his lawyer, every time the court said they'd garnish his wages and then somehow never did. I opened the folder and immediately found what I was looking for, the original child support order. $800 monthly, plus 65% of medical expenses, plus annual cost of living adjustments. By 2023, he should have been paying nearly $1,200 a month. Instead, the payment record showed a different story entirely. The last payment we'd received was $400 in March, 6 months ago. Before that, $200 in October of last year. The pattern was clear, just enough to avoid complete legal abandonment, never enough to actually support a child. Mom, look at this. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I'd taken of Dad's household expenses. This is from his basement. He's been spending more on groceries for his other family than he was supposed to pay us in child support. Her face went white as she scrolled through the images. Other family? He remarried. Has 2 kids, Emma and Michael. They're 17 and 15. I showed her the family photo from his nightstand. He's been playing house with them this whole time, using money that should have been ours. Mom set down the phone with shaking hands. Sarah, this could be evidence of criminal contempt. The amount you're showing me, this proves he had the means to pay support and chose not to. It gets worse. I pulled up the photos of my college fund documents. He opened an education account for me when I was born. Put $300 a month into it for years. By the time I was 16, there was almost $48,000 in there. 48,000? Mom's voice cracked. Sarah, I had no idea this existed. The divorce decree didn't mention any education fund. That's because he closed it in 2008 and transferred the money to an account for Emma. My college fund paid for his other daughter's future. We sat in silence for several minutes, the weight of 16 years of financial manipulation settling between us like a toxic cloud. Finally, Mom spoke. What are you going to do? I'm meeting Emma on Saturday. She has no idea who I really am. She thinks we're going to be sisters bonding over Dad's kidney disease. I pulled up Emma's text messages, which had continued throughout the morning. She'd sent me photos of care packages she'd made for Dad's dialysis appointments, asked if I wanted to coordinate our hospital visits, wondered if we could plan a family dinner to celebrate when he got better. She genuinely loves him, I continued. And he's been a good father to her. That's the part that makes this so sick. He was capable of being the dad I needed. He just chose not to be. Mom reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I'm sorry, baby. I should have fought harder in court. Should have hired that investigator myself when the payments stopped coming. This isn't your fault. But even as I said it, a new thought occurred to me. Mom, do you still have contact information for your divorce attorney? Rebecca Martinez? She retired a few years ago, but her firm is still active. Why? Because I think we're about to reopen a very old case. My phone buzzed with another text from Emma. Dad's at dialysis again today. Want to surprise him with flowers when he gets home? I could pick you up at 4. I stared at the message, realizing that Saturday's coffee meeting had just become much more complicated. Emma wasn't just going to learn she had a half-sister she'd never known about. She was going to learn that her perfect father was a criminal. I stared at Emma's text about picking me up for a surprise visit to Dad, my coffee growing cold as the implications hit me. She didn't just want to meet for coffee anymore, she wanted to bring me into their family routine, make me part of their cozy little world of dialysis flowers and dinner coordination. I can't meet you today, I texted back. Rain check on the flowers? Still on for coffee Saturday though. Her response was immediate, of course. Dad will understand. He's been so excited about having both his daughters together finally. Mom's making her famous lasagna for Sunday dinner if you want to join us. Both his daughters. Mom's lasagna. Sunday dinner. I screenshot the message and added it to my growing evidence folder. Patricia Thompson, because apparently that was her name too, was making family dinners for the daughter her husband had abandoned while she lived off stolen child support money. My phone rang. Mom's contact photo filled the screen. I called Rebecca Martinez's old firm, she said without preamble. Spoke to her partner, David Chin. He remembers our case, said it was one of Rebecca's biggest frustrations because your father kept claiming financial hardship while somehow affording better lawyers than we could. What did he say about the evidence I found? He wants to see everything. Sarah, if what you're showing me is accurate, we're not just talking about back child support anymore. This could be wire fraud, perjury, contempt of court. The college fund alone constitutes theft of assets that should have been disclosed during divorce proceedings. I walked to my kitchen window, watching normal families go about their Thursday afternoon routines. A dad was teaching his daughter to ride a bike in the courtyard below. Such a simple thing, being present for the moments that mattered. There's something else, I said. I'm supposed to house sit again today, and I only got through half the trunk last time. There were 3 more folders I didn't photograph. Sarah, be careful. If your father realizes you've been through his things. He won't. He trusts me now, thinks I'm the grateful daughter ready to hand over a kidney. The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. Besides, I need those documents. Emma mentioned their mom is making Sunday dinner. Patricia Thompson exists, Mom. This isn't just some affair, he's been married to another woman while paying us scraps. The silence stretched between us. Finally, Mom spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I looked her up after we hung up yesterday. Patricia Thompson, 46 years old, works as a dental hygienist at Bright Smiles Family Dentistry. They got married in Las Vegas on June 12, 2006. My blood turned to ice water. June 2006? Mom, when exactly did you and Dad get divorced? The papers were finalized August 3, 2006. He'd married Patricia Thompson 2 months before his divorce from Mom was legally final. Bigamy. Another felony to add to the growing list. I'm going back to his house, I said, grabbing my keys. I need photos of everything in that trunk, and I need them today. Sarah. Mom, Emma wants to introduce me to her mother on Sunday. She thinks we're going to be one big happy blended family while I donate my kidney to save the man who's been systematically stealing from us for 16 years. I paused at my apartment door, rage and determination warring in my chest. I'm not walking into that dinner empty-handed. The drive to 847 Maple Street took 23 minutes, and I spent every one of them planning exactly how much evidence I could gather before Dad returned from dialysis at 6 p.m. I had exactly 3 hours to document 16 years of lies. Time to get to work. The basement felt different this time. Maybe it was knowing exactly what horrors waited in that trunk, or maybe it was the way the afternoon light filtering through the small windows seemed dimmer, more ominous. I checked my phone, 2:47 p.m. 3 hours and 13 minutes until Dad returned from dialysis. I brought a portable phone charger this time. If I was going to photograph every document in that trunk, I needed to be prepared. The trunk opened with the same soft creak, revealing the remaining folders I hadn't touched yesterday. The 5th folder was labeled Patricia Medical/Insurance. Inside, I found something that made my hands shake so violently I nearly dropped the papers. Insurance beneficiary forms dating back to 2006, listing Patricia Thompson as Dad's wife and primary beneficiary, with Emma and Michael Thompson as secondary beneficiaries. My name appeared nowhere on any of the documents, despite the fact that I should have been covered under his policy until age 26. But that wasn't the worst part. Attached to the insurance paperwork was a death certificate application, blank but filled out in Dad's handwriting. He'd been planning ahead, making sure Patricia and the Thompson children would inherit everything when he died, while Mom and I remained completely excluded from his will. The medical record showed something else that made my stomach lurch. Patricia had been treated for anxiety and depression starting in 2019, with therapy notes mentioning stress related to husband's financial secrecy and concerns about family finances. Even Patricia was being lied to. The therapy notes mentioned her worrying that Robert wasn't being honest about their financial situation, that there seemed to be money missing from their accounts that he couldn't explain. She had no idea he was supposed to be sending nearly $15,000 a year in child support to his first family. I photographed everything, then moved to the sixth folder, Michael, college planning. Inside were application materials for prestigious engineering programs, along with financial aid documents that made my vision blur with rage. Dad had filed FAFSA paperwork claiming Michael as his only dependent, listing a household income of just $47,000 instead of his actual $89,000 salary. Financial aid fraud. He was stealing government assistance for Michael's college education while hiding his real income, the same income he claimed he couldn't afford to pay child support from. But the document that broke me was a handwritten letter, dated just 3 months ago. Michael, I know college is expensive, and I wish I could do more to help. Your grades have earned you a partial scholarship, but we'll need to take out loans for the rest. I'm sorry, I can't provide the kind of college fund I always dreamed of giving you. Maybe someday when my financial situation improves. Love, Dad. Michael's college fund, my college fund, was sitting in Emma's education account, and Dad was letting his son believe they couldn't afford to help him with school. He wasn't just stealing from Mom and me. He was stealing from Michael too. The final folder was labeled simply Contingency Plans. Inside, I found documents that made everything else look like minor infractions. Paperwork for a second mortgage on the house at 847 Maple Street, approved for $85,000. Bank statements showing the money had been transferred to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. A passport application for Robert Thompson, not Coleman, with a fake address in Vancouver. Dad wasn't just hiding money from child support obligations. He was preparing to disappear entirely, taking Patricia and the kids' home equity with him. At the bottom of the folder was a handwritten timeline: kidney transplant recovery 6 to 8 weeks, liquidate remaining assets, relocate to Vancouver account. My phone slipped from my numb fingers, clattering onto the basement floor. The sound echoed in the silence like a gunshot. Dad wasn't planning to rebuild our relationship after the transplant. He was planning to take my kidney, steal Patricia's home equity, and disappear to Canada with Emma and Michael, leaving everyone else behind to deal with the financial wreckage. Above me, I heard the front door open. He was home 2 hours early. Footsteps moved across the kitchen floor above me, accompanied by voices. Multiple voices. I told you she'd probably be here somewhere, Dad's voice carried down through the basement ceiling. Sarah's been such a help with the house sitting. I can't wait to meet her. Emma's voice, bright with excitement. This is so much better than waiting until Saturday. My blood turned to ice. Emma was here. In the house. While I was crouched in the basement surrounded by evidence of her father's crimes, holding documents that would destroy her entire world. I frantically started shoving papers back into folders, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the documents. The photos were saved on my phone, that was what mattered. But I needed to get this trunk closed and get upstairs before they came looking for me. Sarah? Dad called. You down in the basement, sweetheart? Just a second. I managed to call back, my voice cracking. I slammed the trunk lid closed and grabbed the same Christmas decoration box I'd used as cover yesterday, then scrambled toward the stairs as footsteps approached the basement door. Dad appeared at the top of the steps, backlit by the kitchen light. Behind him, I caught a glimpse of long brunette hair and a Roosevelt High School volleyball sweatshirt. Emma. There you are, Dad said, starting down the steps. Emma insisted on coming with me today. She's been so excited about meeting you that she couldn't wait until the weekend. Emma bounded down the stairs behind him, and I got my first real look at my half-sister. She was beautiful in the way 17-year-old girls are beautiful, all bright energy and genuine smiles. She looked exactly like Dad had at that age, based on old photos Mom still kept in a shoebox somewhere. Sarah. Emma threw her arms around me in an enthusiastic hug that made me want to cry. I'm so happy to finally meet you. Dad talks about you constantly. I hugged her back stiffly, acutely aware that my phone was in my pocket, loaded with photos that would destroy her family. It's nice to meet you too, Emma. I brought snacks, she said, pulling back and gesturing to a paper bag in her hands. I know Dad gets tired after dialysis, so I always bring him those protein bars he likes. I brought extras for you. She was taking care of him. This 17-year-old kid was worried about their father's nutrition and energy levels, making care packages and organizing his medical routine. Being the kind of thoughtful daughter I'd never had the chance to be. That's very sweet of you, I said, accepting the protein bar she pressed into my hands. Over her shoulder, I could see Dad watching our interaction with what looked like genuine warmth. As if he was proud of both his daughters, finally together. The manipulation was breathtaking in its audacity. So what were you organizing down here? Emma asked, glancing around the basement with interest. Dad's been saying he needs to clean out some of this old stuff for years. Just Christmas decorations, I said quickly. Some boxes had fallen behind that old trunk. Emma's eyes lit up. Oh, the trunk. Dad, you still have Grandpa Coleman's old steamer trunk down here? I thought Mom made you get rid of all that stuff when we redid the basement. My heart stopped. Grandpa Coleman. She knew about Dad's side of the family, knew the trunk's history. This wasn't just a storage container to her, it held family memories she'd grown up hearing about. Dad's face went carefully neutral. Emma, why don't we head upstairs and let Sarah finish what she was doing? I'm sure she doesn't want us hovering. But Emma was already moving toward the trunk, her teenage curiosity overriding any social boundaries. I hadn't looked in here in years. Sarah, did you see all the old photos and stuff? There are pictures of Dad when he was our age, and some really cool vintage clothes that belonged to great-grandmother Coleman. She was reaching for the trunk lid. Emma, don't, Dad started forward, but she'd already lifted the heavy top. The trunk was exactly as I'd left it, folders scattered haphazardly, documents visible, my hasty repacking job obvious to anyone who looked. Emma stared down at the manila folders, her smile fading as she read the visible labels. Thompson family, household expenses. Sarah, college fund. Contingency plans. Dad? Emma's voice was small, confused. What is all this stuff? Why is Sarah's name on these folders? The silence in the basement was deafening. I could hear my own heartbeat, could see the exact moment Emma's world began to shift off its axis. Dad looked at me, then at Emma, then back at the open trunk. For the first time since I'd reconnected with him, Robert Coleman looked like a man who'd run out of lies. Emma, he said carefully, maybe we should go upstairs and talk. But Emma was already pulling out the top folder, her hands moving with the same determination I'd felt yesterday. The folder labeled medical kidney disease came open in her hands, revealing the letter from Dad's nephrologist and the family medical history form listing both Thompson and Coleman children as potential donors. You listed me as a potential kidney donor, Emma read aloud, her voice getting higher with each word. But I'm only 17. I can't. Sarah, why are both our names on this medical form? Why does it say Thompson and Coleman? She looked up at me, then at Dad, understanding beginning to dawn in her eyes. Dad, who is Sarah really? The question hung in the basement air like poison gas. Emma stood frozen with a medical folder in her hands, her eyes darting between Dad's guilty face and my horrified expression. The family medical history form was right there in black and white. Sarah Coleman, 28, biological daughter. Emma Thompson, 17, biological daughter. Michael Thompson, 15, biological son. Dad? Emma's voice cracked on the word. Why does this say Sarah Coleman is your biological daughter? You told us your first marriage didn't have any kids because your ex-wife couldn't have children. I watched Dad's face cycle through emotions, panic, calculation, desperation. The master manipulator was finally cornered, and he was scrambling for an exit that didn't exist. Emma, sweetheart, this is complicated, he started, but she was already pulling out more documents. The custody papers. The child support orders. The bank statements showing payments to Hartwell Investigations. $800 monthly child support, Emma read aloud, her voice getting smaller with each word. Joint custody agreement. Supervised visitation. She looked up at me with dawning horror. Sarah, how old were you when your parents got divorced? 12, I whispered. And you haven't seen Dad since then? I shook my head, unable to speak. Emma's face was transforming from confusion to betrayal to something that looked like grief. But that means... She turned to Dad, the papers trembling in her hands. That means you've been my father my whole life, but you abandoned her when she was younger than I am now? Emma, you don't understand the situation. Then explain it. Her voice echoed off the basement walls, sharp with hurt. Explain why you told us your first wife couldn't have kids. Explain why Sarah didn't know Michael and I existed. Explain why there are child support papers in this trunk if you don't have any other children. Dad looked at me desperately, as if I might somehow help him spin this disaster into something survivable. The irony was suffocating. He wanted his abandoned daughter to help him lie to the daughter he'd actually raised. Your mother and I thought it would be easier, he said finally. Less confusing for you kids if we didn't mention. Less confusing? Emma's laugh was bitter, nothing like the bright joy she'd shown upstairs. Dad, I have a sister I've never met. Sarah has a brother and sister she didn't know existed. How is that less confusing than just telling the truth? She pulled out another folder, the one containing my college fund closure documents. Her hands shook as she read the transfer paperwork, moving my $47,839 into her education account. This says you closed Sarah's college fund in 2008 and put the money in an account for me. Her voice was barely a whisper now. Sarah, did you know about this college fund? No, I managed. I worked 2 jobs to pay for community college. My mom took out a second mortgage she's still paying off. Emma sank onto the basement steps, the documents scattered around her like evidence at a crime scene. Dad, we used Sarah's college money? All these years, when you said you wished you could do more to help with my education, you were spending money that belonged to her? Emma, I can explain. What about Michael? Her voice was getting sharper, more desperate. Does he know? Does he know his baseball equipment and his laptop and his college applications were paid for with money stolen from our sister? The word sister hit me like a physical blow. Despite everything, despite the theft and lies and manipulation, Emma was claiming me as family. She was 17 years old and processing the destruction of her entire world, but she was angry on my behalf. And Mom, Emma continued, her voice breaking. Does Mom know about Sarah? Does she know you've been lying to us for 17 years? Dad opened his mouth, but no sound came out. For the first time in decades, Robert Coleman had absolutely nothing to say. That's when we heard footsteps upstairs, and a woman's voice calling down, Robert? Emma? I brought dinner. Emma and I looked at each other in shared horror. Patricia Thompson was home. The sound of Patricia's voice calling from upstairs hit the basement like a bomb. Emma's face went completely white, the scattered documents still clutched in her trembling hands. That's Mom, she whispered, as if saying it quietly might somehow make the situation less catastrophic. Dad finally found his voice. Patricia wasn't supposed to be home until 8. She had book club tonight. Book club was cancelled, Emma said numbly. Mrs. Henderson has the flu. Mom texted me an hour ago saying she was bringing home Chinese food for dinner. She looked between Dad and me with growing panic. What am I supposed to tell her? That I just found out my sister exists and you've been stealing from her for 16 years? Robert? Patricia's voice was closer now, definitely at the top of the basement stairs. Why are all the lights on down there? Don't say anything yet, Dad hissed to Emma. Let me handle this. Let me talk to your mother first. Handle this? Emma's voice cracked. Dad, there's no handling this. This isn't some mistake you can explain away. You stole Sarah's college fund. You've been lying to Mom about child support payments. You let Sarah think you abandoned her when you were down here playing perfect father to us. Footsteps started down the basement stairs. I grabbed my phone and quickly shoved it deep into my back pocket, praying Patricia wouldn't notice the evidence scattered across the floor before I could figure out what the hell to do next. There you all are, Patricia said, appearing at the bottom of the steps. She was smaller than I'd expected, maybe 5'4", with shoulder-length brown hair and tired eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She wore scrubs with cartoon teeth on them, the uniform of a dental hygienist finishing a long shift. Her gaze moved from Dad to Emma to me, and I watched her take in the scene, the open trunk, the papers everywhere, Emma's tear-stained face, the suffocating tension in the air. Emma, honey, why are you crying? Patricia moved toward her daughter, then stopped when she noticed the documents in Emma's hands. What's going on down here? Mom, Emma's voice was barely a whisper. This is Sarah. Patricia's face brightened with what appeared to be genuine warmth. Sarah. Robert's daughter. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry we're meeting like this. Emma's been so excited about Saturday, but when she heard you were here today, she insisted on coming along. She moved forward with her hand extended. I'm Patricia. I've heard so much about you. I shook her hand mechanically, unable to process the cognitive dissonance of Patricia's kindness. This woman had no idea she was married to a criminal. No idea that her family's comfortable life was built on stolen child support payments and fraudulent financial aid applications. Mom, Emma said again, louder this time. You need to sit down. Something in Emma's tone finally registered with Patricia. Her smile faded as she looked more closely at the papers scattered around the basement, at Dad's guilty expression, at my obvious distress. What's wrong? She asked, maternal instincts clearly kicking in. Robert, why does Emma look like someone died? Because someone did die, Emma said, her voice stronger now. The father I thought I knew just died. She held up the custody papers, her hand steadier than mine would have been. Mom, Dad didn't just have a first marriage that didn't work out. He had a daughter. Sarah is my half-sister, and he abandoned her when she was 12 years old. Patricia stared at Emma, then at me, then at Dad. That can't be right. Robert told me his ex-wife couldn't have children. That's why your marriage ended, isn't it, honey? Because she couldn't give you kids? The lies were unraveling in real time. I watched Patricia's face as the implications hit her. If Dad had lied about having a daughter, what else had he lied about? Mom, there's more, Emma said gently. A lot more. Patricia sank onto the basement couch, her purse slipping from nerveless fingers as Emma began laying out document after document on the coffee table like she was dealing cards in the world's most devastating poker game. This is a court order for $800 monthly child support, Emma said, her voice taking on the mechanical tone of someone in shock. Dated 2007. It says Dad was supposed to pay Sarah's mom $800 every month until Sarah turned 18. Patricia picked up the document with shaking hands. 800? But Robert, you told me you only had to pay 200, and even that was a strain on our budget when we were first married. There's more, Mom. Emma pulled out the bank statements I'd photographed earlier. These show Dad's actual income. He makes $89,000 a year. He's been lying to Sarah's family about not having money while we've been living off money that should have gone to them. I watched Patricia's face cycle through confusion, disbelief, and growing horror as she processed each document. When Emma showed her the college fund transfer papers, Patricia actually gasped. You transferred $47,000 from Sarah's education account to Emma's? Patricia looked at Dad like she'd never seen him before. Robert, that's theft. It's more complicated than that, Dad finally spoke, his voice defensive. The divorce was messy. Patricia didn't want me around, I thought. You thought what? I found my voice for the first time since Patricia arrived. You thought I didn't deserve to go to college? You thought my mom deserved to work 3 jobs while you were coaching Emma's soccer team? Patricia's head snapped toward me. You worked 3 jobs, she asked my reflection in Dad, her voice sharp. Robert, you told me your ex-wife was doing fine financially. You said she remarried someone wealthy and didn't need the support payments anymore. Another lie exposed. Mom had never remarried, had barely dated. She'd spent 16 years raising me alone while Dad played house with his replacement family. That's not even the worst part, Emma said quietly. She pulled out the FAFSA documents from Michael's college folder. Mom, look at this. Dad filed financial aid applications claiming Michael as his only dependent and listing our household income as $47,000 instead of $89,000. Patricia stared at the papers. Financial aid fraud, she whispered. Robert, this is financial aid fraud. If they find out you lied on these forms, Michael could lose his scholarship. He could be expelled. Where is Michael? I asked suddenly, realizing the 15-year-old hadn't appeared with the Chinese food and family chaos. Baseball practice until 6:30, Emma answered automatically. He has no idea any of this is happening. Patricia stood up abruptly, pacing to the far corner of the basement. 17 years, she said, her voice getting louder. 17 years, Robert. I've been married to you for 17 years, and apparently I don't know you at all. Patricia, please. Please what? She spun around, and I could see the dental hygienist was gone, replaced by a woman whose entire world had just collapsed. Please forgive the fact that you've been committing multiple felonies throughout our entire marriage. Please understand why you let me worry about money for Emma's college when you had a secret account with $50,000. Emma looked up from the scattered papers. Mom, there's something else. Something about the house. Patricia went very still. What about the house? Emma held up the documents from the contingency plans folder with trembling hands. Dad took out a second mortgage for $85,000 3 months ago. The money went to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The silence that followed was deafening. Patricia stared at Dad with an expression I'd never seen on another human face, complete and utter betrayal mixed with dawning recognition that her husband was a stranger. You mortgaged our house, she said slowly. The house where I've raised my children for 15 years. Our home. And you hid the money in a foreign bank account. I can explain, Dad started. No, Patricia cut him off. No more explanations. No more lies. She turned to me, her eyes filled with tears but her voice steady. Sarah, I am so deeply sorry. I had no idea. I swear to you, I had no idea. Upstairs, the front door slammed. A teenage boy's voice called out, Mom? Dad? I'm home. Something smells like Chinese food. Michael was home from baseball practice. Emma looked at me with panic in her eyes. What do we tell him? Michael's voice echoed down from the kitchen, cheerful and completely oblivious to the devastation waiting for him in the basement. Practice went great. Coach says I might make varsity next year if I keep working on my curveball. Patricia closed her eyes, her hands pressed against her temples. He's 15 years old, she whispered. How do I tell my 15-year-old son that his father is a criminal and we might lose our house? Mom, we have to tell him, Emma said, though her voice shook. He's going to find out eventually, and it's better coming from us than from the police. Police. The word hung in the air like a threat. Until now, this had felt like a family drama, awful but contained. But Emma was right, this wasn't just about hurt feelings and broken relationships anymore. Dad had committed multiple felonies over nearly 2 decades. Mom? Dad? Michael called again, closer to the basement door now. Where's everyone? I can see the Chinese food bags on the counter. Patricia straightened her shoulders, transforming back into the protective mother she'd been for 15 years. Michael, honey, can you come down here please? We need to have a family meeting. I heard Michael's footsteps overhead, then the creak of the basement stairs. He appeared at the bottom of the steps looking exactly like Dad had at that age, tall for his age, sandy brown hair, still wearing his muddy baseball uniform. His face was bright with post-practice endorphins, completely unprepared for what was waiting. Hey, what's everyone doing in the basement? His eyes found me and his expression shifted to polite curiosity. Oh, hi. Are you Sarah? Emma's been talking about you all week. Yes, I managed. I'm Sarah. Cool. Emma said you might donate a kidney to Dad. That's really awesome of you. His genuine enthusiasm made my chest ache. Dad's been pretty scared about the whole thing, but having family help out. That's got to feel good, right? Patricia made a sound somewhere between a sob and a laugh. Michael, sit down, sweetheart. We need to talk. Michael's smile faded as he took in the scene, documents scattered everywhere, Emma's tear-stained face, the open trunk, Patricia's obvious distress. Did someone die? Is Grandma okay? Everyone's physically fine, Emma said carefully. But Michael. Sarah isn't just some distant relative Dad reconnected with. She's our half-sister. Michael blinked. Half-sister? But Dad said his first marriage didn't have any kids. Dad lied, Emma's voice was steadier now, as if explaining it to Michael was helping her process it too. Sarah is 28. Dad left her and her mom when Sarah was 12, and he's been hiding her existence from us our whole lives. I watched Michael's face change as the implications hit him. At 15, he was old enough to understand what this meant. His father had abandoned one family to start another, had been living a double life for longer than Michael had been alive. That's messed up, Michael said quietly. He looked at me with something that might have been sympathy. Sarah, you were only 12? Dad just left you? He was supposed to pay child support, I said. $800 a month. My mom and I lived in a tiny apartment and ate ramen for dinner because we couldn't afford groceries. Meanwhile, you guys had this house, family vacations, college funds. Michael's face went pale. College funds? But Dad always said money was tight for college. He said I'd have to take out loans because there wasn't enough saved up. Emma pulled out the documents showing my transferred college fund. Michael, the money from my college account came from Sarah's education fund. Dad stole almost $50,000 that was supposed to pay for her future. And the financial aid applications he helped you fill out list false income information, Patricia added, her voice hollow. Michael, if the government finds out your dad lied on those forms, you could lose your scholarship to Henderson Academy. Michael sank onto the basement floor, his baseball glove still clutched in one hand. So everything's been a lie? Our whole family is built on money stolen from Sarah? The brutal honesty of it, coming from a 15-year-old, cut through all the adult rationalizations and excuses. Yes. Their entire comfortable childhood had been funded by money that should have supported Mom and me. There's more, Emma said quietly, and I wanted to tell her to stop, that Michael had heard enough for one day. But she was right, hiding more secrets wasn't going to help anyone now. Dad took out a second mortgage on our house 3 months ago, Emma continued. $85,000. The money's in an offshore account. Michael looked up sharply. Offshore account? Like criminals have? Yes, Patricia said simply. Like criminals have. The silence stretched until Michael finally spoke, his voice small and confused. So what happens now? Michael's question hung in the basement air like smoke. What happens now? I looked around at the scattered evidence, at Patricia's shell-shocked expression, at Emma clutching documents that proved her father was a criminal, at 15-year-old Michael still holding his baseball glove like it might anchor him to the normal life he'd known an hour ago. Now we call the police, Patricia said quietly, pulling her phone from her purse. Wait. Dad spoke for the first time in 10 minutes, his voice desperate. Patricia, please. Think about what you're doing. Think about Emma's college, Michael's scholarship. If this becomes public, if I get arrested, everything we've worked for. Everything we've stolen, you mean, Emma interrupted, her voice sharp. Dad, stop. Just stop talking. But Dad was in full panic mode now, the careful manipulator replaced by a cornered animal. Sarah, you don't understand what this will do to your brother and sister. Emma's supposed to start at University of Washington in the fall. Michael has a chance at a full ride to Henderson Academy. If you destroy me, you destroy them too. The manipulation was breathtaking. Even now, even caught red-handed with evidence scattered across the basement floor, he was trying to make me responsible for protecting the children he'd raised with my stolen money. Don't you dare, I said, standing up. Don't you dare try to make me the villain here. You stole from me for 16 years. You let me think I was worthless, that my own father couldn't be bothered to fight for me. You stole my college fund and gave it to Emma, then acted like you were doing me a favor by reconnecting so I could give you a kidney. Sarah's right, Michael said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at him, this kid who'd been processing life-altering revelations for all of 20 minutes. Dad, what you did is really messed up. Like, really messed up. And now you want Sarah to keep quiet so we don't get in trouble? That's not fair. Patricia's phone was still in her hand, but she hadn't dialed yet. Michael, baby, if I call the police, your father will be arrested. There will be a trial. Our finances will be frozen during the investigation. The house might get taken away, Michael finished. I get it, Mom. But Sarah's mom might lose her house too because Dad never paid child support, right? He looked at me. Is your mom okay? Like, financially? She took out a second mortgage to help pay for my community college, I said. She's been working 60-hour weeks for years just to keep up with the payments. She drives a 15-year-old car and hasn't bought herself new clothes in I don't know how long. Michael nodded like this confirmed something he'd been thinking. So if we don't call the police, Sarah's mom keeps struggling while we get to keep living in a house Dad bought with stolen money. That's not right either. Emma wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Michael's right. We can't just pretend we don't know about this now. She looked at Patricia. Mom, what if there are other people Dad stole from? What if Sarah and her mom aren't the only ones? That thought hadn't occurred to me, but Emma was right. Someone capable of this level of systematic deception for 16 years probably wasn't limiting his crimes to one family. Patricia seemed to have the same realization. She looked at Dad with growing horror. Robert, is there anyone else? Any other debts you've hidden? Any other families you've lied to? Dad's face went gray. Patricia, I can explain. That's a yes, Emma said flatly. Oh my God, Dad, who else? It's complicated, Dad started, but Patricia cut him off. No more it's complicated. No more lies. She turned to me. Sarah, when you were going through that trunk, did you see anything about other people? Other families? I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the photos I'd taken. There had been so many documents, so much evidence. But now that she mentioned it. There was a folder I didn't get to photograph, I said slowly. It was at the very bottom of the trunk. The label said Harrison Construction Employee Benefits. Patricia went very still. Employee benefits? What would that have to do with personal finances? Michael looked confused. Dad, you don't handle employee benefits at Harrison. You're a project manager. But Dad's face had gone completely white, and I knew we'd just uncovered something much bigger than child support fraud. Emma was already heading for the trunk. Emma pulled out the thick folder labeled Harrison Construction Employee Benefits and opened it on the coffee table. What we found inside made everything else look like petty theft. Spreadsheets showing falsified workers' compensation claims. Fake invoices for construction equipment that was never purchased. Medical insurance claims for employees who didn't exist. And at the bottom, a letter from the FBI's white-collar crime division dated 6 weeks ago, requesting Dad's employment records as part of an ongoing investigation into Harrison Construction's fraudulent billing practices. Dad, Emma's voice was barely a whisper. The FBI is investigating you? Patricia grabbed the letter with shaking hands. Robert, this says they're looking into embezzlement of over $400,000 from employee benefit funds. $400,000? Michael looked like he might throw up. Dad, did you steal from people's medical insurance? From their retirement money? The basement went dead silent except for Dad's ragged breathing. Finally, he spoke, his voice hollow. The kidney disease, the medical bills were piling up. Patricia's hours got cut at the dental office last year. Emma's college tuition, Michael's private school. I was going to pay it all back after the transplant, after I recovered. With what money? Patricia demanded. The offshore account? Were you planning to take my kidney donor's organ and then disappear to the Cayman Islands with stolen employee benefits? The timeline clicked into place in my head with sickening clarity. That's why you reached out to me, isn't it? Not just for the kidney. You needed to disappear before the FBI investigation concluded, but you couldn't leave the country with kidney failure. You needed me healthy enough to donate, then you were going to take my organ and run. Dad's silence was answer enough. Emma stood up abruptly. Mom, call the police. Call them right now. Emma, Dad started. No. Emma's voice echoed off the basement walls. You were going to take Sarah's kidney and then abandon us too. Just like you abandoned her. You were going to steal our house and disappear while Michael and I dealt with the FBI investigation. Patricia was already dialing. Yes, I need to report multiple felonies. My husband has been embezzling money from his employer and hiding assets offshore. She looked directly at Dad as she spoke. The address is 847 Maple Street. Michael picked up some of the scattered documents. Sarah, what's going to happen to your mom? Can she get the child support money Dad never paid? I think so, I said. My mom's lawyer says this evidence proves Dad had the means to pay support but chose not to. The court can order him to pay back everything he owes, plus interest and penalties. Good, Emma said fiercely. And Sarah, you should get your college fund back too. All of it, plus whatever interest it would have earned. 20 minutes later, we heard sirens outside. Through the small basement window, I watched police cars and an FBI vehicle pull into the driveway of 847 Maple Street. As they led Dad away in handcuffs, Emma grabbed my arm. Sarah, I know this is terrible, but I'm glad we found out. I'm glad I know I have a sister. Even though it means losing everything? I asked. We're not losing everything, Michael said, appearing beside us with a cardboard box of the evidence we'd organized for the FBI. We're losing the stuff Dad stole. But we still have each other, right? All three of us? 6 months later, I testified at Dad's sentencing hearing. He pled guilty to embezzlement, child support evasion, financial aid fraud, and tax evasion. The judge sentenced him to 8 years in federal prison. The restitution order was comprehensive, $128,000 in back child support to Mom, $47,839 plus interest for my college fund, and $400,000 to Harrison Construction's employee benefit fund. The offshore account covered most of it. Mom used her portion to pay off the second mortgage and go back to school for her nursing degree. I'm finishing my bachelor's program at the same university where Emma is studying pre-med. Michael kept his scholarship. The court ruled he was an innocent victim of his father's fraud. Patricia lost the house, but she and the kids moved into a smaller place across town. We have dinner together every Sunday now. Emma still brings those protein bars she used to pack for Dad's dialysis appointments, except now she brings them for our study sessions. Last week, Michael asked me to help him with his college applications. Not the financial aid parts, Patricia handles those now, with complete honesty about their actual income. Just the essays about overcoming adversity. What should I write about? He asked. Write about learning that doing the right thing is more important than protecting comfortable lies, I told him. Write about having a sister who taught you that family isn't about who raised you, it's about who chooses to stand by you when everything falls apart. The trunk is long gone, sold to pay legal fees. But I kept one document, that handwritten note where Dad wrote maybe it's better this way. Emma and Michael need their father more. He was wrong. We all needed him to be better. But we didn't need him to be whole.